Well, hello and welcome to our very first show of the Enneagram case files. And the intention of this series is to really three things. One is to help those of you who are determining, am I a 2 or whatever feature type we're looking at? Am I this or that? Or it can maybe help those of you who know you are that featured type gain some additional evidence or insight about yourself and how to communicate what you need, how you feel to others, identify strengths. And then the third intention is also to bring some awareness and understanding to those of you who may not identify with the featured type, but are looking to better understand someone in your life, maybe someone on your team, maybe as a leader, somebody that you're leading. So hopefully, if you don't identify with the 2, you'll take that information away as well. And as I mentioned, we are focused on the type 2 today. This series will be bringing out, I don't want to say a deep dive, but a dive into some key components for each of the types just to gain some additional understanding. And then there'll be some time at the end to ask questions. And then we will also get to hear from some informants who are going to give us the insight from the inside as that specific type. And we have one lined up for you today that you'll hear from shortly, as well as some key witnesses when it makes sense about what it's like to live and work with that type. As I mentioned, our prime suspect today is the type 2. And so we're going to look at, okay, what does that mean? What is a type 2? We're going to talk about what it looks like in theory. And then our informant today is going to give us some additional insight into, is that true? Is that how that shows up for her? I also have a memo from an informant, so we'll get to that as well. I am your host, Sarah Wallace of Enneagram MBA, host and lead detective, I guess, on this investigation. So without further ado, let's get in and open up this case file on type 2. If you are watching this live or on the replay, and you do know your type, let me know in the comments. If you are struggling between a couple or really resonate with a couple different ones, you'll also have to let me know that in the comments as well. And we'll maybe circle back to some of that in a minute. So at the end of the day, the thing that makes a 2 is this ability to, and I'm going to actually make this a little bit bigger here, is the striving to feel connected. That is it. That is it. No behavior. It is that core driver, that core motive. The core desire for our 2s is they're looking to be loved and wanted and appreciated. So anything that could cause them to maybe feel disconnected or unwanted, they're going to shy away from, maybe even run away from. And we'll maybe hear from our informant how that shows up in just a minute. 2s tend to be focused on the needs of others. Their superpower is reading other people. They can know exactly what that person is thinking, not what they're saying, but what are they actually going through, and then be able to deliver what they need. And when I talk to a lot of type 2s about this superpower, they tend to say, I had no idea that was even a superpower. I kind of thought everybody did this. I thought this came natural. So it does not, I assure you. Those of us who are not 2s, this is something that requires much more thought and intention. Again, the types, it's not necessarily about behavior, but there are some core common tendencies or behaviors that will give you some clues. Sometimes there's 2s that look nothing like a 2, but they're driven by that core motive. So I'm not saying this is 100% 2s 100% of the time, but 2s tend to be pretty selfless, right? They're focused on the needs of others. So that can make sense. They tend to be really compassionate, empathetic, tend to be very thoughtful, right? 2s can get a reputation for being just the ultimate gift giver because they pay attention to what people like, what they need, and can deliver on that, right? And you'll find them, maybe this is stereotypical, but they have a tendency to be pretty warm and friendly in the workplace. They're going to be the ones showing up, asking people how they're doing, what can they get for others in the room. They're center of intelligence is the heart or the feeling center. So this doesn't mean they don't think, they don't have a strong gut instinct. It just means that typically when our twos are deciding something, the very initial way that they're going to do that is check in with how do I feel? And for twos, they're really focused on outward. How are others feeling about that? And really in tune. So we're seeing some commonalities here with our twos. And then their problem solving style, because of all of this, tends to be, how can I help you? What can I do to help in this situation? And then there's something that those of you who are more familiar with the Enneagram might be aware of. It's called stances. For those of you who are not, that's okay. But there tends to be 3 different ways or groupings that types go after getting their needs met, what they want, what they need. And for our 1s, 2s, and 6s, they're in this group called compliant or dutiful. I know 1s, 2s, and 6s don't like to be called compliant. It doesn't mean you're compliant to somebody else, just kind of compliant to a belief that you have about yourself or who you should be. So in this case, I should be helpful. Like I should put others first for the type 2. They're going to be really focused on the common good more than what's best for me. So with that, I want to take a look at, I want to bring our type 2 in here, our type 2 informant. Samantha, hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being willing to do this and jump in and help me out last minute. I'm going to see how we can, here we go. I want people to be able to see you. So would you just quickly introduce yourself and what you do for work, just to get a little background?
Sure. My name is Samantha Martin, and I'm currently a content manager for a career change company that has a podcast. So I mostly write and manage that podcast.
Okay. And type 3 or type 2 sometimes are known kind of the power behind the throne. And in just learning what you do and the type of work that you enjoy, it sounds very much like you have a lot of influence, maybe not in the spotlight. And we're going to actually talk about that in a minute. 2s can absolutely be in the spotlight. 2s can absolutely be the leaders. But I'm just curious, based on what we covered and what we kind of talked about, some of the tendencies and qualities of a 2. How did you know that you were a 2 out of all the other types?
Sure. So I would say the main thing is whether I'm okay or not really hinges on my relationships with others and how others around me are doing. So I'm constantly evaluating the relationships in my life. If everything's simpatico, everybody okay, like checking in with my people, we're all good, thinking about the last interaction I had with the people closest to me. And then I'm also, whoever I'm around, I'm constantly reading the room, making sure everyone's okay. If everyone's okay, I'm okay. If somebody's not having a good time, then I'm probably going to check in with them. I'm just always trying to predict how others are feeling and like their needs and if I can do anything to help them. So when I read those specific like descriptions about a 2, I was like, oh, wow, everyone's not like that. If everyone's not like that and that's a 2, then I guess I'm a 2.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about this. And regardless of the type, it's just kind of that like aha moment where you're like, wait a minute, this isn't a thing for everybody.
Yeah.
And you had shared something specifically at work, how sometimes you'll like look around at a meeting and be like, oh my gosh, that person looks bored or looks like they're ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And again, yeah, not everybody is kind of tuned in on that channel.
Yeah.
And understanding that and seeing those types of things. So in the role that you do, and you can either take it from like this specific role or just kind of your career as a whole, how have you seen the qualities and tendencies of a 2 show up in a way that helps you at work, that serves you?
Sure. Well, of course, it comes to relationships with my team. Like I'm always trying to build a good relationship with every person on my team. And I think 2s, because they can read people and like learn people really quickly. And like they want to get to know people. They understand how to communicate best with people on their team or people they interact with regularly, and they know like who needs to be pushed at certain times and who needs to be nurtured. And I think like I've learned how to just really communicate with the different people on my team, and it's always helped me in every single one of my roles. And twos, I think, have a hard time receiving feedback because it's like, oh no, people don't like that person doesn't like me. So I think what that does for twos is like it allows them to give feedback and like push for certain, I don't know, have hard conversations in like a positive, with a positive spin and like in a good way. And because of relationships and being able to, read people and all of that, I think I do really well in a group setting, leading a group, like finding consensus in a group. So yeah, I think those are like the biggest places that it all kind of hinges on like coworkers and the team. And like I'm more of like a project manager right now, so a lot of it is just like getting certain aspects from certain people and just making sure that's on time. And I kind of love that because I get to deal with a bunch of different people all the time.
Okay. And I'm so glad you said just kind of being able to understand people and lead them and get what you need. Because there tends to be, the stereotypical leader. And we've talked about this before. It can be the 3 or the 8 or some of those other more like assertive energies. But exactly what you said, like type 2s actually make they make excellent leaders because of their ability to build alliances and relationship build and understand, okay, this person needs pushed, this person needs something else. So I love that you said that. I actually have a slide on pet peeves that I'm gonna ask you to hang on for just a minute, and I would love to hear what is true for you. Before we do that, though, the other thing that I wanted to get into the file about here for our type 2s, I'm going to put us to the side, Samantha, has to do with kind of the fluidity of the type 2. And this is one of the things that I love about the Enneagram. It's not just a static number, like this is who you are. There's all different ways that regardless of your type, we can kind of move all over the Enneagram diagram. And we have wings that we can get into at some point. We have arrows, and that's what we're going to just talk about briefly here, because I have heard from people who are struggling to find their type that when they understood what their stress arrow was and what those behaviors were, it was either like definitely yes, or, oh, wait, nope, not at all. And I'm actually this type over here. So I wanted to bring some attention to it, as well as understanding not you, Samantha, specifically, but anybody else who is identifying with the 2, what growth looks like, because growth looks very different. And what is kind of hard and really is an accomplishment is going to be different for each of us. There's some things that come more natural and some things that require more intention. And so to celebrate that and to recognize that. So for our type 2, they have a line that goes to an 8 and a 4. And there's a gentleman that I follow. His name is Mario Securo, and he teaches a lot in the corporate world. And so I really like how he talks about things. And one thing that I've adopted is his terminology around a supporting strategy and a neglected strategy. And for the 2s, they're supported. And I'm going to ask you, Samantha, how you see this, if you do. The supporting strategy for the 2 is this 8 is striving to feel powerful, to be strong, and 2s will sometimes tap into that energy and support their striving to feel connected by kind of that I want to be powerful in that I'm influencing you, I'm giving you advice, I'm helping you so that we can feel connected. And then in times of stress, it will also maybe look a little bit domineering, maybe angry. I've heard from 2s that they're warm and friendly and kind, and then all of a sudden they have a highway to an 8 in a time of stress when they've just feel like they're being taken advantage of, and they will take on those qualities of an 8. I've heard it called the highway to an 8 for our 2s. And then for the neglected strategy for our 2s, it's the type 4, which is striving to feel unique. And the reason why a 2 might neglect that is because we've talked about 2s wanting to be helpful, others focused, looking at the common good, putting others in front of yourself. And type fours, wanting to be unique can kind of feel like, well, that's just very like, self-centered. You're in your own self-interest. And type fours tend to be really connected to their own feelings, not to say they can't be empathetic and compassionate as well, but they tend to really be in touch with how they feel. And so ironically, that neglected strategy is the growth for the two, to focus more on themselves, actually, to focus, how do I feel? What do I need for once? What type of boundaries do I need to put in place? So I'm going to pause there just for a moment, Samantha, and I would love to hear anything that comes up for you or that you've noticed in your own life with the stress arrow or the growth arrow.
Sure. The highway to 8 was an interesting way to put it. When I was reading like the description and everything about a 2 being, it's, warm and friendly and everything, I was relating to that. But when there's like times of stress, like I can get pretty mad and pretty hot-headed. And as soon as I read that, stress goes straight to a type 8, I was like, oh, wow. Okay, that makes sense too. It's just like putting this puzzle together of myself with the Enneagram. So that was really interesting. But I think that like I like how it's termed supporting, because I use that, I feel like, a lot of the time, to really like take a stand, especially when it's for others, of course. Like when I'm, taking a stand for someone else, or I feel like I need to stand up for something I believe in or something, I think that type 8 really comes in and can help out a 2, just really like get their point across. So I like to think of it that way, and not just a like hot-headed and angry type of and then the type 4 for like it being neglected easily, because I'm just always looking outside myself and even like evaluating my own feelings based on how others around me are feeling, instead of like sitting down and being like, no, but how are you feeling? Because I'll automatically go still to the people around me. And it's really hard and to dig deep and figure out exactly what I want with no influence from outsiders. So it's easy to neglect, and it's easy to just like push forward as a 2 and not think about your own self-interest. And a lot of people, I think of that as like neglecting self-care and things like that. Like when they talk about a 2, that they don't like do things for themselves. And I don't even know. It's just like really figuring out what your motivators are. I feel like that's where I neglect it, like really figuring out what I want and not just following the consensus of the people around me. So I like how those are termed supporting and neglect, because I definitely can see that on both sides.
Yeah, and I'm glad you just reiterated the arrow to an 8, like absolutely can be leveraged and used for good and your career, your job, whatever it is in your life, bringing that power, that strength to whatever it is that you're working towards. And with that type 4 growth, the thing to remember is whatever your growth arrow is in this specific situation, if you happen to be living or working or leading a type 2 and notice them standing up for themselves, maybe speaking up for something that they want, or taking a vacation, or setting a boundary about their work hours, or asking for help, that is really difficult for them. And so when you see them doing that, like recognizing, celebrating that, it's not as difficult for others. And so that may not, that's why, growth looks very different. And that's why I love the Enneagram, because it's really spotlighting, hey, this is what is kind of hard for this type, and this is how you know that they're growing. So love that. As we wrap this up, I wanted to kind of look at how we can apply this in the workplace, and things to know when we're working with a type 2 in whatever capacity. And some pet peeves that I've read about, that I've heard about from others, and probably the number one that I hear repeated is when their generosity, they feel like their generosity and flexibility is taken advantage of. When someone's not doing their part, not taking their advice can feel frustrating sometimes. When somebody else is maybe putting their individual self-interest in front of what's best for the group, maybe feeling left out of an event or a meeting. And then when someone makes decisions without considering how it's going to impact the group, again, kind of that focus on the common good. Do you see any of your pet peeves in here, Samantha, or is there anything else that you would add?
I think all of those are probably some of my pet peeves. The one that really stuck out to me was as far as work is having their generosity taken advantage of, because you hear about like being a yes man at work a lot, but I think that is just like it comes along with being a type 2 because you're just trying to help out all the time. You're not wanting anybody to like look at you negatively. It's hard to set your own boundaries and say I need this. So you are kind of you just become a yes man. So it's easy to have your generosity taken advantage of. So I think that it might be hard for people to understand that aren't type twos because they're like, just say no, just draw your boundary. If like say
Right.
you're at capacity, but I really have to like hype myself up, even if I know like for a fact, like either I don't have time to do this or like somebody else could do this easily. It's really hard for me to say like, no, I can't. I'm just like, oh, I'm letting them down. It's a thing that I have to really like walk through, like myself through.
Well, and that reminds me of we got a tip from an informant, written in tip, and they had said something similar, that because it is so difficult as a manager, as a leader of somebody with a type 2, to make sure that you are paying attention to how much you're asking of them, how much extra they're taking on, because they may struggle to say no. And so as that leader, you may need to step in and coach them, help them, or just, say, nope, you don't have to do this time, and just kind of, partner with them on building up that no muscle or boundary muscle.
Yeah, let them know how to say no to you. That will help them out. If they know like that you are ready and expecting it sometimes, I think that would really be helpful to a 2 on your team.
Oh, so good. So good. Okay. And as we start to wrap this up, I'm curious, there's a lot of Enneagram theory, probably 100+ books on the Enneagram. We have all kinds of information about the type 2. Is there anything that you feel like stereotypically we get wrong about the type 2, or that you wish more people understood about the type 2?
I kind of mentioned this a little before, talking about how when I learned about the line to the 8, it kind of really helped me realize, oh yeah, I am a 2. But I think a lot of 2s are stereotyped as like smiling, cheerful, sugary, sweet all the time. And I, at least personally, am not. I don't think I come off that way. Maybe I do sometimes, but I don't think so all the time. I'm far more serious than that. I'm always, worrying about, my relationships with others, how others are doing. And I often downplay that for other people. So I might come off a little more lighthearted than I am internally. But I don't know if other 2s would like this analogy, but I like to say the type 2s are like the mama bears of the Enneagram, because like we are caring and we can be warm to the people that we love, and so yeah, it's just like the stereotype of like the warm, sugary, sweet. I would say warm, but not like smiling, cheerful all the time. So yeah, that was the biggest thing for me to get through, because I was like, oh no, that's not me. So I really had to dig in, and for a while I wasn't sure what I was, but definitely a type 2.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's such a good one to be aware of, and just a reminder of why you can't type people off behavior alone. And I was just on an Enneagram coaches call earlier, talking about the differences between type 2 and type 6, and type 2 and type 9, and this, how we can have similar behaviors, but at the end of the day, it's what is driving you. So if you feel, anxious or worried, why is it, like, what is that driver? And kind of the determining factor for 2s is like, is this affecting my relationship? Like, how will this impact my connection with others?
Yes.
So, well, Samantha, I appreciate you being willing to be our type 2 informant. Whoops. Hopefully we don't have to put you in the witness protection program. And you'll be able to live a normal life, go on with your day. If there are any questions, now we're on the replay. Let me know whether it's your type 2 questions or just any general Enneagram questions. If I need to, I'll tag you, Samantha, to pull me in, or to get pulled in and help answer some of those questions. We're going to be looking at type 3 on the next one in 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that. I'll be sending out more information. And we'll just, kind of have fun with this, help people understand each other, ourselves, and specifically, how we're showing up at work, but also, things to know about life and the people and our relationships. And gosh, this can be so helpful even with going into the holidays, just understanding some of this. So any final words from our type 2 informant, Samantha, before we call this investigation complete?
Nothing specifically type 2. Thank you for doing this. I think it's so helpful. Like I said, I had a while where I was really lost on what number I was. But as soon as I learned, it really helped me figure myself out and learn, why I react to things the way I do. And also realize that everyone isn't thinking the same way I am. So that was super helpful. And I love learning about the other types. So I'm excited to tune into those.